All right. Um, so this is a special moment for me. Um, I get the honor of introducing our keynote speaker. I've known Mr. Kurt Russell uh, going on 20 years almost now, going back to when we coached against each other. I was the head coach of Admiral King, and Coach Russell is coach of Oberlin. And, on the court, there's a competitiveness. It's just natural. But off the court, what coaches do to inspire their athletes to be better human beings is most important. And one of the things I admire most about Coach Russell is he was always raising gentlemen. Yes, fierce competitors on the court, but it was more important that they put their academics first and being a good young man in that same breath. And that still continues to this day. So on that journey, so we coach, and there was some separation over time. I'm here in Lorain, he's there in Oberlin, and there was a time where I had to make a decision in my life to leave Lorain City Schools temporarily, and I landed in Oberlin. And Coach Russell was one of the first people to welcome me into Oberlin, and it meant a lot. And I was fortunate enough to be the principal of a middle school, Langston Middle School, in which his son attended. And I saw advocacy, I saw fatherhood, I saw leadership, I saw a great husband and a wife working together, and those are the things that make me most proud to be a friend of Coach Russell. See, as parents, as families, we do have to advocate for our students, for our children, because if we don't, who will? And he set that standard. And I think that's an important piece. Now, you all have his bio here, and I'm going to read from it because that's what I'm supposed to do. I wasn't supposed to say all that extra stuff. But I'd be remiss if I didn't let you know that while he is a renowned Teacher of the Year, and let me say that again, National Teacher of the Year, Kurt Russell, is here with us. And why is that important? I don't know if you know the statistics around educators in the United States. 2% of educators in the United States are African American male. 2%. And of that 2%, National Teacher of the Year, Coach Kurt Russell. Can we give a round of applause again? The importance is behind that, and this is a message that our community needs to understand and embrace, is we can do and be anything if we put our minds to it. But it takes a village to support that journey. So let me read, because Miss AJ is saying get to reading, and I'm not going to disappoint. A 25-year veteran of the classroom, Kurt Russell was first inspired to become a teacher in middle school. My voice sounded good. Did y'all hear that? Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. To become a teacher in middle school when he encountered his first black male teacher. Now, as 2022 National Teacher of the Year, he plans to advocate for classrooms to better reflect the students within them, from a curriculum that reflects their backgrounds and identities to a more diverse teaching profession. Kurt teaches history at Oberlin High School in Oberlin, Ohio, where he was born and raised. His classes include African American history, which he has taught since the late 1990s, and race, gender, and oppression, a class he developed. He also serves as a faculty advisor for the student-led Black Student Union, whose work has led to positive impacts for students across racial groups. And I want to point that out, too, because I remember the advocacy. Once again, he's an advocate for not only his children, but for all children. And I happened to be a principal around that time. And there was no doubt that that had to happen. And he led students to make that happen, which was just amazing to watch. In addition to his classroom and extracurricular duties, Kurt is the head coach for the school's varsity basketball team. He sees basketball as an extension of the classroom and a place where young people can learn about working together and how to handle both adversity and success. Kurt holds a Bachelor of Arts degree with a major in history and a minor in Black Studies from the College of Worcester and a Master of Education in Curriculum and Instruction from Ashland University. He continues to take courses in child development at Oakland City University. He was previously recognized as Teacher of the Year by the Oberlin Heritage Center and the Oberlin chapter of the NAACP, and as Lorain County Basketball Association Coach of the Year and the Northeast Ohio Coach of the Year. Kurt lives with his wife Donna in Oberlin. They are parents of 2 adult sons, Kurt Jr. and Corey. Kurt enjoys reading nonfiction and traveling. So once again, can we give a round of applause for Coach Russell? And I want to just thank you, brother, for being here with us today.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Hopefully you could hear me. The one thing that Mr. Scott did not tell you is that when I coached against him, he beat us by maybe 25 here at the Shop Palace at the old Admiral King School. And the next time, I think Mr. Scott came to Oberlin and he beat us by 20 again. So I still have a little grudge with Mr. Scott for that. That's right. So Mr. Scott, I really do appreciate you and thank you so much. And Lorain, thank you for having me this morning. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be with you. I just want to thank the organizers of this great event. Those who, yes, please give them a round of applause. You know, those who are seen and also those who are invisible, right? Those who are behind the scenes, making copies and making sure that this beautiful school is clean and welcoming. I'm a little jealous. I'm looking around this school and it's absolutely amazing. So congratulations to you, the city of Lorain, for having such a wonderful, inviting, beautiful school for your students to attend. It's such an honor. And also just want to thank the parents for showing up today. It's Saturday. Yes, give them a hand. Thank you. It's Saturday morning, 10 o'clock. It's a beautiful day, and you could have been anywhere else. I was sharing with my assistant coach, Coach Payne, is that at 12 o'clock, there's a big game. I'm a big Alabama football fan. And so I will make sure I will get back to Oberlin and watch Alabama beat up on Texas as well. So, so once again, I am just truly, truly honored to be with you. If I could just share a topic with you, building together, all right? Building together as a community. And if I could start with a picture, I was fortunate to speak at the White House back in April. And while I was there, I spoke on a topic about why did I become a teacher. And as Mr. Scott mentioned in his address, I talked about 2 teachers that really informed me. My kindergarten teacher, her name was Miss Francine Toss, and my math teacher, 8th grade math teacher, his name was Mr. Larry Thomas. And while I was at the White House, I thought to myself, there's more to the story beyond this picture. I think for some of you, when you see me at the White House and see this picture, it seems very, very, I guess, important that I made it. And if I was arrogant, and if I had this sense of I did this by myself, that's what I would say. You know, I was at the White House because of me. I was at the White House because I'm this great teacher. I'm at the White House because the kids absolutely love me. Right? That's an arrogant statement that I could make. But I realize and I reflect among myself that I'm at this White House in the Oval Office speaking in front of the president, the first lady, because of this ecosystem of education. Right? Is that education is divided, in my opinion, with 3 major entities. There's parents, there's students, and then finally, one of the most important things is the schools. That education is divided into three major systems. There's parents, there's schools, and then finally there's a community. And so all three of these entities shaped who I am as a person. And it's my job today to try to explain to you the roles of each one, and then really pay attention to the role of parents in the growth of their child through this journey that we call education. Because each one of these three parts have a responsibility. And if that responsibility is severed, then that child is going to have difficulties. I'm going to say that again. Each one of these entities are important because if one of them is severed, then the child is going to struggle. So I was fortunate to grow up in Oberlin, where I had the basis of all three. So if I could start with the following. What is the responsibility of Lorain City Schools? Teachers, administrators, support staff, certified staff. What is your responsibility? Well, the first thing that you have to do is that you are shaping the academic success of your schools. See, you are the ones, Lorain City Schools, as I challenge you with this, is providing education for your students. But not only a basic education, but an education that is based upon equity and justice. An education that is based upon equity and justice, where every single student at Lorain City Schools should see themselves reflected in the classroom. If that is not happening, then there's a problem, and we are not doing our job. So if you are a white student going through Lorain City Schools, then that white student should see him or herself in the classroom. If you are a black student, that black student must see him or herself in the classroom. If you are a Hispanic student, you must see him or herself in the classroom. That's key. So if we are shaping students, we must make sure that students are valued. What's another responsibility for schools is to model pro-social behavior. You got to model behavior. What do we want our students to look like in our community? Do we want our students to fight and argue all the time? Are we modeling that? Are we modeling where we are arguing with ourselves in our schools? Do we know how to be proactive in making sure that we have an issue, we are doing it in a respectful manner? See, because kids are watching. I'm not sure you realize that. Kids are watching and they model our behavior. They model our behavior. And so it's our responsibility as educators, and when I use the word educators, it's just not teachers, it's just not administrators. I'm looking at secretaries, custodians, because all of us within this building are educators. So we must make sure that we model positive behavior. And then finally, we must make sure we provide social skills to our kids. With the age of technology, the age of computers, the age of cell phones, you know, kids are lapsed with social skills. So we have to model that. How do we talk to one another? How do we greet one another? I was sharing with Mr. Scott as I walked in this building today how impressed I was, because I don't take this lightly, where someone met me at the door and smiled and said, "Good morning, it's good to see you." That goes a long ways. I try to do that in my classroom where I meet my students by the door and I smile and I say, "Good morning, how are you? It's good to see you." Try to do the same thing on the basketball court. So these social skills are key. So once again, we have these entities. The first thing, the responsibility of schools. We got to work hand in hand. Students. I don't think there's any here. I see a few. What are your responsibilities? Well, students' responsibilities is to inform the structure and learning of the classroom. See, students' behavior, I'm going to get to the parents in a second. Students' behavior dictates what happens in the classroom. If students are talking, if students are disruptive, then the learning process is going to suffer. So in my class, my 25 years of teaching, the one thing I notice, or one thing I harp upon, is to make sure students have a voice. Because when students have a voice, when students are engaged, then students are going to dictate their own personal learning. And that's what we want. We do not want our kids to be robots. We don't want our kids to regurgitate information. We want our kids to think for themselves. So once again, the responsibility of the students is to make sure they take a hold of their education and they run with it, with the guidance of educators. We have our schools. We have our students. And then we have our community. We have our parents. What are our responsibility as parents? This is my mother. My mother raised 3 boys. My father passed away when I was in 7th grade. I was in 7th grade. My middle brother was a 9th grader, and my older brother was a 10th grader. So 3 boys living in Oberlin, Ohio. My mother was a parapro, so she worked in the school district, didn't make a whole lot of money. But one thing that she did was that, I sound pretty good too. Yeah. The one thing that she concentrated on was engagement. She was engaged. I became a teacher. My middle brother is a diversity officer for PBS in Chicago, and my older brother is a social worker living in Columbus. She raised 3 boys. All 3 boys earned their graduate degrees as a single parent because she was engaged in the schools. She was engaged. So what does that engagement look like? Because I say the word engage, and we might say, oh, engagement means that you are showing up to somewhere. Well, it's bigger than that, right? Engagement really has, in my opinion, a major topic. Do you value, like my mother, education? I'm speaking to parents. Do you value education? Do you value education? What does that look like? Valuing education. Do you make education a priority in your home? As Mr. Scott mentioned, I coach basketball. I coach basketball with my great assistant coach, Coach Payne. Coach Payne and myself noticed one thing. Every single game, we have families traveling. It's a Tuesday night, a Friday night. We travel all over the place when we play. Sandusky, Cleveland, and every single game, parents are there. Now, this is the caveat to this. We have parent-teacher conferences. Some of the same parents who travel with us can't travel a quarter of a mile to parent-teacher conferences. So do you value education? Is education a priority in your home? And it's great that we speak about this. It's great that we say we want all kids to learn. And as a parent, right, with 2 kids, My wife and I made it a point that every single parent conferences we will attend, because we value the purpose of education. What is the purpose of education? It's to make sure that our own personal kids reach his or her success. Whether it's a college degree, whether it's career tech, whether it's the military. That's the purpose, and that's why we have to value it. So what's the priority? Are you involved in your schools? Do you show up? When your teacher asks for certain things, and if you are capable, are you providing? That's that involvement. And then we finally have, are you supporting your schools? Are you supporting your schools? There's a story I would like to share with you. 2019, right before COVID hit, started an organization called the Black Student Union at Oberlin High School. This was in the wake of George Floyd. So students came and said, we would like to start an organization. So with that being in mind, I asked parents, what do you think about this? Because of course, with all of this educational debates about divisiveness, CRT, and you introducing an organization that is called the Black Student Union, right? The Black Student Union. How is that going to be received in our school district? Well, fortunately, I live and work in a school district that is very progressive, Oberlin, Oberlin College, that progressive mentality. So I knew it was going to go pretty well. But let me take a journey back. A parent was upset because a parent says the Black Student Union, is it only for black students? The answer is no. It's for all students to engage in dialogue about equity and justice. That's the whole mindset. So I asked for support, a letter from other parents to discuss what was good about this organization. 10 parents wrote a letter because they are involved. See, they see the importance of it. And so that's why this circle is so key. Because you gotta have a priority with education. You have to make sure that you are supporting your schools. And the most important thing, you have to be involved. You have to show up. Involvement, time, in my opinion, is worth, in some cases, more than money. I coach basketball. The pay, Mr. Scott, is not great. The pay is not great, but I don't do it for the pay. I say Coach Payne is my assistant coach, the pay is not good. And Coach Payne always gives his money back to the program. Because we recognize that our involvement with our students is more important than anything else. So if I could conclude with some personal tips, if I could share with you. What are some tips to parents in the community to help students thrive? In 25 years, these 3 things I notice where students do well in my classroom. The first thing, when parents check nightly academic progress, I notice that my students do well. I'm sure Lorain City Schools, in Oberlin we have Power School. I'm not sure what Lorain City School might have. Power School, thank you so much. It's not difficult. Every single night, my wife checked our students' grades, my two sons, every single night. Whether it's 6 o'clock in the evening, 7 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. Didn't matter. Every single night. Because this is what happens to students who struggle in my class. Coming from Kurt Russell saying, hey, you are missing this assignment, you are missing that assignment, sometimes goes in one ear and out the other. Right? You tell them, hey, you're missing this assignment. I need this done by Wednesday or Friday. It's in one ear and out the other. But parents, I'm not sure if you realize this, the power you have with your kids. If you tell your students, I want you to turn in that assignment the next day, they will do it. That's why it's important that you check nightly progress of your students. Number two, this is what I noticed with students who are doing very well in my classroom, is that parents email and call with positive reports and also concerns. I say that twice. With positive reports and also with concerns. All of us are humans. Teachers are humans. Can you imagine every single phone call you receive and it's negative? Why you let my child do this? My child should have this. Why did my child blah, blah, blah? It's frustrating. Why not try this? My child had a great conversation at dinner about your class. Just want to send a quick email about that. Thank you for allowing my child to turn in that late assignment. I really do appreciate that. Thank you for working hard. I really do appreciate that. Right? Positive feedback goes a long ways. But also, I have a concern with this in your class. That is fine, because you are advocating for your child. So I want to make sure I mention and highlight both positive feedback and concerns, because you are involved. Making sure that you tell your teacher that there's an issue that I would like to sit down and address with you. That open line of communication. And then finally, number 3, please, I even begged my parents at Oberlin, attend parent-teacher conferences. How else are you going to know what's going on in your child's class without speaking to your teacher? I said it before, and this is not a critique or criticism on parenting, but I have to say it. If you could travel miles to see your child participate in an athletic event or a drama production, or take your child to a concert in Cleveland, then you could travel a few miles to the schools and sit down and have a conversation with your teacher. If you cannot make it on that particular date, then you could call your teacher, and your teacher should have the responsibility to rearrange his or her schedule to meet your time. But that personal interaction between the student, the parent, and the family is key. And Lorain City Schools is doing a marvelous job at that. And you are doing a marvelous job because you are here. So So I thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Once again, our kids deserve our best. Whether it's from myself as a teacher, myself as a parent, or even myself as a life learner, as a student, that all three work together in order for our kids to grow. Mr. Scott, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Once again, thank you, Coach Russell, for being here with us today. Thank you. I had a privilege for a year of being able to go into his classroom every day and feeling that energy. And you guys got a little taste of it, but the energy is infectious. So when we talk about things like engagement, our collective energy sets the tone for everything. And Coach, I appreciate your message around positivity as well. It is easier to receive criticism, was a takeaway, when you put a little honey on it too. So I appreciate that message, because I needed that reminder today, because this morning was tough. So I got to go home and put a little honey on some things. So just thank you so much. And once again, thank you all for being here. This is engagement. Because of technology too, we will be able to reach others. So, Coach, once again, thank you for allowing us to do that as well, because although people may not be able to be present in this moment, they may be present on YouTube. They will be able to engage later, but we all have a responsibility moving forward to write this Lorain City Schools narrative, to control that narrative through the positive things that are going out in our schools and our community. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't face the challenges that we have, because challenges do exist. But through engagement, nightly, daily, positive energy, and your presence, we can do all things. Your presence is a gift, and we need to share that gift as a community. And now here's the fun part. We get to engage. So I'm going to stop talking, because, Miss AJ's, I could feel it. She's saying, hey, we got business to attend to. We got games to get to. We got kids zones to engage with. So I just want to thank everyone for this opening piece. This is a summit that will continue and will grow. And it's going to be awesome. We just have to believe and have a little bit of hope, and we can do all things. So, Dr. AJ, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Here you go.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Thank you, Mr. Russell. So inspiring. So, we are going to let our community partners make their way down to their classrooms so they can set up, log in at this time. So we're going to give them a few minutes to make their way to their classrooms, if they can do that at this time. And we're going to ask the parents to sit tight, family members to sit tight. But we're going to allow for you, if you have questions of Mr. Russell. If you have questions, does anyone have any burning questions that you might have for Mr. Russell? And we want to acknowledge our First Lady of Lorain, Mrs. Bradley. We never acknowledge her. Hi, Miss Bradley. Hi. She's always so elegant. I always like to see her. Oh, take your time, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Scott. Go ahead, Mr. Scott. While they're taking photos, we just want to, again, thank you all so much for coming out this morning. This is just lovely. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Russell? Think about it. We can bring a mic around. Feel like a game show hostess. I do. I love the mic. You know that. You know that, Dr. Sturgill. Anyone? You do? Thank you. Okay, here I come. Coming with the mic. You ready, Marisol? Okay. Give me 1 second while he finishes up. Now, that's a lifetime moment right there for that young man. He's going to remember that for the rest of his life. You want to make a statement. Okay, statements are good. You are so welcome. No awe. Okay, Mr. Russell. She wants this young lady right here wants to make a statement.
I just want to say that you were awesome. And I also want to say to the parents, because I have had so many parents tell me this, I don't have to go to conference because my student is a A+ student. But you still need to go to conference because you don't know what your child is doing in school. If you're not talking to the teachers, you still need to go to conference. My daughter is 54. She had 3 sons. I went to conference for her. I went to conference with her for her 3 sons. Now I have great-grandsons. And if I'm still living, I'll be going to conference with them.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. From the Chronicle, Mr. Russell.
So why do you think it is so important for the community to be involved in the schools? Why do you think it's so important for the community to be involved in the schools?
Hold on.
Right? Thank you so much. Okay. Why is it so important for the community to be involved in schools? It's because school is made up of the community. So families is the community, and I really equate that together. So when I look at community, I'm always focusing on families. And families, I'm always focusing on children. So in order for children to be socially, emotionally growing, and educationally growing, that you need the backing of families and communities, and that's why it goes hand in hand with one another. You can't have a school without a community.
I've been waiting on this moment. No. In all seriousness, I spoke earlier about 2% of our educating staff being African-American males. You have inspired, and were inspired by Mr. Thomas. Yes. How do you, what are your thoughts on inspiring the next generation of educators that look like you and I?
Thank you, Mr. Scott. As Mr. Scott mentioned, a teacher, as I said earlier, Mr. Larry Thomas was the first black male teacher I ever had. And a lot of times you hear teachers are born to be teachers, and I was not born to be a teacher. I was shaped and molded to become a teacher. And so as I looked at Mr. Thomas, the way he dressed, the way he spoke, the connection he had with his students, it's the same thing that I try to emulate with my own students. To be kind, to be generous, to speak to them, to carry myself hopefully in a professional manner, and just to bring the excitement to teaching. A lot of times when you think of professions that people would like to be a part of, teaching is not one of them, right? So teaching is never highlighted as this great, great profession that it really is. And I'm just trying to bring joy into the teaching profession. And so if a student recognizes that, hey, Mr. Russell is energetic, he seems as though he loves to teach, this is a pretty cool profession. And hopefully I could inspire some young people to go into it. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, that concludes this session, and we are ready for our first workshop. So if you would pull out your little yellow slip that you registered for your classes. Our first workshop starts at 10:30. If you have your map that we have made up for you, you will go down B hallway in building B. Your classes will either go down to the hallway, you will either make a left or a right for your classes. The key is at the bottom. The map is in English and in Spanish in order to help you. So please look on your registration card on the yellow slip for your classes to know which class you're going to. And we're going to go down this hallway. Miss Jones, if you could raise your hand where you're at. Miss Jones, Tamara Jones, raise your hand. That's where the hallway you're going to go down to go start your classes. And we are going to come back at 11:45. You're going to go down to the gym to get your kids, and we'll meet you back here at 12 o'clock for lunch. Thank you and enjoy your class time.